Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Fleming, and I am the Undersecretary General for Global Communications at the United Nations. And I'm so pleased to welcome you to today's event. It's called, as you know, Through Her Lens, Perspectives on Peace. This is going to be a live conversation featuring a remarkable group of photojournalists from conflict-affected areas, all of whom bring the distinct lens of women documenting their worlds. This event is co-organized by the UN Department of Peace Operations, the Department of Political and Peacebuilding Affairs, and UN Women. And it's supported by the department that I lead, the Department of Global Communications. It's part of a broader series of events tied to the photo exhibition Through Her Lens, Women Rising for Peace. And it also marks the 25th anniversary of the Women, Peace, and Security Agenda, which is a timely reminder of how critical women's leadership and experiences are in shaping peace narratives. So thank you so much for being with us, those who are speaking and also those who are participating. Just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. We are recording this webinar, and it will be made available at a later date in both English and French. French interpretation is available via the interpretation icon on your screen. It's shaped like a globe. I just tried it. It's really easy to switch back and forth. So panelists, please speak slowly and clearly to support our interpreters. And all participants are in listen-only mode. And also later in the program, we'll open the floor for your questions. So if you could use the chat to write your questions and indicate to which speaker also your question is directed, that would be great. And so I'm delighted now to introduce our panelists, a group of extraordinary visual storytellers whose work captures resilience, community, and peace through a woman's lens. And tuning in from Lebanon is Rita Kabalan, who is a talented photojournalist and whose work explores culture, migration, protest, and the environment. Rita has covered key events such as demonstrations in Egypt in 2011, the refugee crisis in Europe, and protests in Lebanon. Her photography has been exhibited internationally and featured in Al Jazeera and Foreign Policy. She also teaches photography to both migrant and local communities, using visual storytelling to connect personal experiences with collective struggles. With us from Sudan, we have Mona Elfateh Bukhari, a visual storyteller and filmmaker whose work explores themes of social and political transformation. Mona blends photography, film, and investigative storytelling to highlight the strength of communities and voices of those too often left out of mainstream narratives. Her images center on human rights, cultural resilience, and everyday acts of courage. Next, we welcome Nsoseme, Dora, who is a photographer and slam poet from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Do's work combines documentary and conceptual photography to challenge traditional gender roles and spark dialogue on women's rights. And through her art and poetry, she creates visual spaces for reflection, healing, and change. Joining us from Haiti is Narline Novembre, a photographer and social worker who uses visual storytelling to strengthen community voices. And for more than 6 years, Narline has documented themes such as urban violence, Haitian identity, and the role of women in peacekeeping. She also works with local organizations to teach creative skills to young people and collaborates on grassroots film projects that spotlight underrepresented stories. And last but not least, we have Cailley Frank-Lehrer, senior producer at Photoville, the organization that makes this incredible exhibition possible. Based in the United States, Cailley has been with Photoville for 8 years, producing large-scale public art projects in New York and also around the world. And I believe she's speaking to us from the World Expo in Osaka, Japan. She works to make photography accessible to everyone and was instrumental in bringing, through her lens, women rising for peace to life. Before joining Photoville, Cailley worked in film and television, contributing to documentaries and producing for major film festivals across the country. That is my introduction to our amazing panelists, and I want to welcome you all, and such a pleasure to have you representing these difficult parts of the world for today's conversation. And I'm going to turn to Rita first and ask Rita, how do you balance documenting the urgency of conflict while also showing the everyday ways women keep their communities going?
Hi, Melissa. Thank you. I mean, I will just start by saying it's not something that you really plan conscientiously. You don't really say, how am I going to balance? Because I think these things tend to happen simultaneously. They're not, you don't really stop doing the everyday things when there is conflict. So like, mothers still teach their children how to read and write without conflict. And generally, when there's conflict, they tend to continue doing that. So I think what happens with conflict is that there's just this added layer of urgency. So in an everyday situation, women come together, they work together, they bond, they like for one example, they might go together to a place like with the like to have strength in numbers. And in an everyday situation, that kind of thing still happens to protect each other from harassment. And then during conflict, harassment still happens. So there's that, and then there's this added layer of let's go together so that there's accountability, or if there's like mass displacement, one of us might be really good at language. One of us might be really good at communication or navigating. So these things just happen organically. And I think when you're there to document it, and you're there and you listen and you're seeing, instead of just having this like preconceived idea of what you're going to photograph, of what you're going to document, these things just happen organically. So I don't personally do anything to balance it, but I more just try to absorb what's happening and document it that way.
Hmm. Thank you very much for that insight on your approach, Rita. And I'm going to turn from Lebanon, I might say, and now I'm going to turn now to Mona, who is speaking to us, I believe. If you could all start maybe by also just saying, where are you speaking to us from, and if it is a dramatic situation like we have in Sudan right now, and also in Haiti, just what is it like? What is it like for you right now? And then maybe to the question. So we often hear, Mona, that photography is still a male-dominated field, especially probably in a dangerous environment. What do you think, and how does this relate to your experience?
Well, thank you, and hello everyone from Port Sudan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today about the ongoing conflict in Sudan and the urgent need to focus on the experience of women during this crisis. So let me start by saying there are many reports of sexual violence being used as a weapon on this war. Displaced women and girls face rape, forced marriages, and trafficking, and other form of abuse. So much of my work has focused on documenting the stories of internally displaced women who are survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, struggling to maintain their dignity, pregnant women without access to basic medical care, and those in desperate need of hygiene and dignity care. So in these moments, I have witnessed how deeply important for these women to speak to someone who understands their reality, someone they can feel safe with, they often open up more easily to me, not just because I share their language or culture, but because also I'm a woman just like them. So I believe that our presence as women photographers is essential and needed. We see different stories, we gain access to different spaces, and we often bring level of intimacy that is missing when those stories are only told through a male lens. And I just want to say hello to all my male photojournalist colleagues. They are truly doing fantastic job covering the war in Sudan since it started up to date, and happy International Photography Day, and also happy International Humanitarian Day today. But yes, photography, especially in conflict zones like Sudan, is still very much male dominated field. In my experience as a storyteller from a conflict country like Sudan, right now, I have often been one of the few, if not the only woman behind the camera, documenting stories of the work from the ground. There are many cultural and structural barriers that discourage us women from entering or staying on this profession, from safety concerns and social expectation to lack of access to training, maybe equipment sometimes. Carrying camera in Sudan as a woman is seen as a threat sometimes.
Mm.
I have been told to go home, stay quiet, and I've been stopped by armed men demanding to see my photos, threatening to destroy them or destroy the camera. We often access uh, execute of being spies, so simply just because doing our jobs. So yeah,
Wow.
this is
Thank you
what.
so much for sharing that, Mona. So we have you've really outlined the barriers, but also the fact that the horrors that you are documenting are horrors that are happening to women, sexual-based violence, and I am sure that they would not respond to a male photojournalist in the same way. So half of those who are suffering in war are at least half, or usually we say it's a majority, are women and children, and I think it's so needed that you're able to to establish that trust. And I think being a woman is helpful. But thank you for just talking about the other obstacles you face in a male-dominated profession and in a dangerous environment. I'm now going to turn to do I pronounce your name correctly? Like Do or
It's Dora.
Doe? Okay,
Dora,
Doe.
yes.
Thank you very much, Doe. And I'm wondering what your, just the general environment is like for you to operate in, and whether you've ever faced pressure to focus on certain narratives over others, but also how you've worked to ensure that women's voices remain central.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you for asking this important question. So I'm speaking from Kinshasa, here in the DRC. So yes, as a woman photographer working in this conflict zone with what is happening in the east of my country, but not just in the east, there are also a lot of violence happening in the west, like in Maindombe, in the east, Goma, Bukavu. But in conflict zone, most of the time, we receive often pressures to highlight specific, sometimes sensational narratives. So the pressure that sometimes I face is that to highlight narratives such as violence or victimhood over the fuller, more nuanced stories of resilience, of peace building, and also of activism of communities coming together to build peace and to move forward in these difficult situations. So what I do is that first I try to document what I see. I will kind of absorb what I see. I will tell that story But at the same time, to ensure that women's voice remains central, I discuss with those women. I think sometimes the photographer is always there just to kind of capture and click on the camera, but just taking the time to sit and discuss with them and to know what they want the world to know about them, like what's the story they want to tell as well. How do they want to be remembered by the world? So that helps me showcase women not just as victims, but as leaders, as peace builders, as change makers in their communities. So I think this is really vital to amplify also their own perspectives and experiences. Yeah. Melissa, are you still there?
Hi, Doe. It seems like perhaps Melissa is experiencing some technical difficulties. I'm sure that she will be right back. Thank you so much for that amazing intervention. And you really outlined the reason why we wanted to feature local women photographers' work in telling the stories locally. While we're waiting for Melissa, I understand her Wi-Fi crashed. It's always in the moment when we're doing something in front of a big audience when we have these technical difficulties. But let me take this moment while we're waiting for Melissa to come and invite all of our participants, all of our attendees today, to share any questions that you have for our amazing speakers to the chat or to the Q&A feature. So if you have questions for our panelists today, you can put those questions in the chat. You can also put them in the Q&A feature, and we will get to as many questions as we possibly can. In the meantime, while we're waiting for Melissa, I'll take us through to the next question. And I'd like to turn to you, Narline. In Haiti, can you talk a little bit about how you operate as a photographer in the current context, which is marked by gang activity in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince? Women are being targeted, and how do you address these challenges to continue telling your stories, especially those stories focused on women in such an incredibly challenging environment?
Thank you for the question. Thank you for this invitation. I see that everywhere in the world, women are struggling. Each day, it's not only in Haiti and in RDC, because stories are alike. So in Haiti, we've been facing problems, violence of all kinds for women and girls. We are the ones, the first targets, and we have to suffer the consequences. As a photographer in Haiti, I wanted, I'm working in a women's association, working with and for women. So in general, there are some NGOs with which we are working on the spot. So this is through the NGOs that we can meet other women in very difficult areas where gangs are leading So this is how we can meet women that are victims of sexual violence, displaced women, women who are running from the violence in their neighborhood. So this is difficult, this is complicated, this is risky for me as a woman. And on top of that, with a camera, it's almost impossible, and people don't want us to use a camera. It's forbidden. So sometimes NGOs
par rapport avec mon association, quand je dois travailler avec
when I have to work with the women,
donc je dois
when I have to report with photos about violences, I've got to work through one NGO, and thanks to them, we get the authorization from the gangs. But sometimes they are the ones who control what women have to say, etc. But at least
on a comme stratégie de faire venir
our strategy is to bring women in a more or less securized place so that we can speak. And sometimes if we have to follow up that person on a day-to-day basis, it's a bit difficult, it's risky, and we don't have this access to some forbidden places. But sometimes we also work through people who settle in some difficult neighborhoods in order to ask someone who is more or less flexible to record some situations. And then afterwards, we can decipher this situation visually so that we can work upon it and make known what's happening in these difficult neighborhoods, and to give these women a voice. So this is how we're working. It is risky for me, for the victims, but the job has to be done. And we are we are doing it still, not getting discouraged.
Allô?
Merci beaucoup, Narline. That's very courageous of you. I'm sorry I dropped off earlier, and internet issue, but very, very moving what you said, and we know how extremely dangerous it is to operate in Haiti these days, and how extremely violent it is, especially if you're a woman. So your work is so important and so vital. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to end this round with Cailley, and Cailley, I'd like to. I mean, you're the one who brings these peace building stories out into the world, and you also not only curate the photography, but you bring them out into very high profile public spaces. Why do you do that? And what kind of impact do you feel that your work is making?
Oh, such a good question. Thank you, Melissa. And thank you for including me in this panel. And just to reintroduce myself, as you said, my name is Cailley, and I work for Photoville, the organization that has helped produce this exhibit alongside UN Women and UNTPO, which we are so honored and happy to do. I'm currently in Osaka. I live in New York, and I'm originally from the American Midwest. So Photoville is a very unique and wonderful organization that produces art exhibits in New York and across the country and the world, bringing visual storytelling, telling stories to audiences in a very equitable, democratic way. So we activate public spaces that could be outside your city hall, it could be a public park, it could be a civic institution, outside your library, along fencing. The idea of public art is that it's accessible to all. We want to bring these stories of Lebanon and of Haiti and of DRC and of Sudan to people in New York and Osaka and the American Midwest and everywhere else. And really the purpose of that is, I think, ultimately, what everyone has touched on tonight is to create awareness, to amplify voices, to give voice to those who are often underrepresented in these circles, and to build empathy, and to perspective shift. So we're happy to do this work, and we're so honored to be taking part in this exhibit through her lens. It was incredibly impactful to see it at the Osaka World Expo, where people from around the world are visiting. I was told that 150,000 people a day visit the expo. So we're so excited that means that these stories will get out there more and create more visibility and build empathy and change perspectives, because that's what this work does, and that's the work that we keep going for at Photoville. So it's a pleasure to be here today.
No, thank you so much for the work you do. Where can one see, if one would travel to Osaka, the Photoville exhibit at the World Expo? Is it in a pavilion?
Yes, it is outside the United Nations Pavilion. The expo is vast. I had no idea until I visited how mind-blowingly big it is. So if you go, by all means, do check out the UN Pavilion. It's really wonderful to have these stories at such a revered stage. And, I think part of what's special about what we do in bringing this artwork to public spaces is it does take away that barrier of entry. For some folks, going into gallery spaces, that's not something that is accessible to them. It's not something that's common. Even the discomfort of going into gallery spaces can feel prohibitive, because those tend to be sometimes rarefied ivy tower-like spaces. So Photoville's real purpose is to bring this work where anyone can see it, where it's accessible and free. And that's really our bottom line. And being able to bring it to the expo has been really special. And to be able to see it tour beyond this will be very interesting and very impactful.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And we're going to do a quick round, one more quick round before we open up the floor for questions, because following on what Cailley just said, I would like to ask each of you, how does it feel to have your work be part of a global exhibition? And what do you hope that those audiences that are viewing your artwork at this exhibition, also together with the other panelists working in conflict situations around the world, what do you hope people will take away from this discussion? And so I'm going to start with Rita in Lebanon.
Thank you, Melissa. I think it's more just to get to know these women, because there's like this idea that we are like giving them this place, but they're actually like they're such strong women, and they have voices and agency, and they often have they have their own platforms, and they're doing so much work. And I think for me, it's just to show others, like as Cailley had also mentioned, to show others that these women exist. Like often, I think at least in Lebanon, there is this idea of, it's almost like two extreme ideas of when you see Lebanese women, it's either like these like the spirits of the Middle East idea of like all these women in miniskirts, and this woman, in a bathing suit and next to a swimming pool with a bombed out building, or like this idea of almost like fetishizing like the Muslim Arab woman. So I think when you see these women doing the work that they did to like more of a global audience, it's more like, I want to show them the way that they see themselves, basically, and not the way through this lens that's always been imposed on them. So
I think that's a really important, and I think it's an important thread. I've heard that from almost all of you, that you're really working with the women and not imposing your own what you see on them, but actually how they would like to see themselves. So in that sense, they're delivering this message as well.
Maybe we lost Melissa again.
I think you're right. I think we did lose Melissa. She must be having some challenges with her internet. Oh, are you back?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Great.
There's this.
No worries. It happens.
Did you hear my question, Mona? I just wanted to ask Mona how she felt about having her work being displayed in New York City and in Osaka, and what kind of message do you hope people viewing your artwork take away?
Well, I think it's amazing opportunity for Sudanese women to be featured as in a global event such as this exhibition, and it's a great opportunity as well to hear from Sudan, because Sudan is not on the media as much as we we need it to be, and also to listen to stories of women from Sudan during this war. And I just want to say that women are not just victims. They are leaders, they are survivors, and they are storytellers tellers in their own right. So I have seen strength and mutual support in IDP gathering sites in camps. Women, they are displaced, but they are helping each other to basically cook for each other, teach others children inside the camp. I documented the efforts of women who aid the displaced people. They are displaced, but they are also helping each other. So this is a great opportunity for me, for Sudan to be featured in such a global event. It's not just about talking about Sudan. It's about listening to Sudanese women, protecting them and funding them, maybe in future events, not just for photographers and journalists, but for women trying to tell their truth from inside the war. And I think as journalists and photographers, we need safe platforms to share our work, maybe protection funding for women-led media, for those stories to be featured more. Because without this, we risk losing an entire generation of Sudanese voice. So I think, so this is why I think it's important for me to be featured in such, my work featured in such events.
Absolutely. I remember seeing the front page of an Economist issue on Sudan, and it was called The Forgotten War. And that's why it is so important, the work what you are documenting, but also if people do hear about the war, it's very difficult for them to grasp. And it's just statistics and numbers of people dying and people fleeing and people starving. So I think what you're really doing is bringing out the humanity and the resilience and how people are helping each other just to get through this horrific period. Thank you, Mona. Do, how about you? How do you feel to have your work out there on display in such prominent places and in this exhibition?
Thank you. So I will say that I really feel glad because I know that with this exhibition, many people are going to hear about the story of women, of Congolese women, and of the challenges that they are going through here in my country. And also, I see it as really like a meaningful and great opportunity to really elevate their narratives and challenges as well. And also just not just to show that they are like they're suffering or the difficulties that they are facing, but mostly also to show that well, women have a big role to play as change makers, and also that what I would hope for people to remember about this exhibition, about my work, is that I hope decision makers will recognize the complexity and also the strength of women in conflict settings. And I hope that they will feel inspired, that they will support policies and initiatives that include women's leadership in peace processes. Because sometimes women are forgotten in those tables when discussions are being made for peace, but they have a role to play. They are there. They want to bring peace to their communities.
And they're probably best placed and the least responsible for the violence that is happening. It's something that the United Nations is continuously pushing for in the Department of Peace Operations and DPPA, that women have a seat at the table. That's why Women, Peace, and Security is such an important initiative, and what the work you're doing is reminding people also that women are playing a very vital role and need to play an even more important one. Narline, how about you? What does it mean for you to have your work being displayed internationally?
Bon, déjà, c'est un privilège.
So first, it is a privilege,
Et
really a
j'en profite pour
privilege.
remercier
And I take the opportunity to thank Photoville, to thank UN Women. Thank you for this initiative, for Through Our Lens, also because
quand on travaille, nous, les femmes,
when we
pour la
work
place faite
as
aux femmes,
women against violence done to women and for peace in Haiti, we wonder if our work is worth it.
toute une série
Because we have a series of events which hide what women are doing in Haiti to help the society come forward, go forward. For example, violence done to women and their efforts to establish peace. The work that women do so that little girls can go on, can keep going to school. And these works are not known. And so this expo is really a privilege, because there are violences, but there are women who are working to women in Haiti in order to reestablish peace and for the Haitian society to keep going forward. So seeing me featured in these international events gives me strength not to be discouraged and to keep going forward. Thank you.
How do you feel, Cailley, hearing these the expressions of what it feels like to be exhibited in Photoville?
Yeah, well, obviously it's so lovely to hear, but you know, I want to just lift up the photographers here, because what I always think about with exhibits such as these is that the impact is twofold. There's the impact on the audience who is encountering these stories that are new to them and learning something new and feeling empathy and connection to other human stories, which is an amazing outcome of the exhibit. But it's also the behind the scenes of the process of making it, which I said I'm not a photographer myself, but I work with a ton of photographers and have so much respect for them, in part because they are also making an impact and building that relationship with the person they are featuring, the person they're taking a photograph of. If someone were to come to you and say, I would love to hear your story. I would love to take a photograph of you and share it out to the world because I think what you're doing is so important. That just gives so much dignity and value to your work. So I think the photographers have given the individuals that they've featured that lift and that fuel to keep going in such important work, which I think that relationship between photographer and the so-called subject is a really powerful one, and it's a really it's a silver lining that and a behind the scenes aspect of documentary photography and photojournalism that we don't often talk about. But I just want to lift up the four photographers here because I know the impact they've had on the people that they have documented and the women whose stories they told just on a person-to-person level has definitely made an impact on those women and given them, I hope, and I think the energy to sustain them in this important peace building and peacekeeping work that they're doing. So I just want to lift that up because I think it's also such an interesting story behind the scenes of how these exhibits get made.
I think it is such an important point because it is the ability to express oneself and have one's voice heard in a respectful way, but with which delivers a message either of humanity, of resilience, of struggle, but of strength. And I think I mean I've seen it often for the person who is the subject of the photograph. It can be also very helpful in a certain way and empowering. So thank you for sharing that, Cailley. I have one question that I'm going to ask to all of you, a quick round. We're starting to get questions from the audience. And all of them are asking, or one of them is asking all of you, has there been a particular event or case that led you to doubt the continuity of your jobs? I mean, some of you did speak of the danger, but I'm sure that there are other things like funding, and so if we can just do a quick round to talk about the difficulty in that sense of how do you keep going, maybe mentally, but also how do you keep going financially, or I mean, I know that Narline talked about some of the dangers that she faces. Mona did too. If just quickly, if you can bring up your biggest challenges to the continuity of continuing to do this work. Rita?
For me, nothing has happened to me personally that has made me want to stop doing the work. I think the past 2 years, for anyone in this region at least, it's just been the killings of journalists in Gaza, like the number of killings of journalists in Gaza has actually been very harmful, like to my heart. And and it's not just that they have been killed, it's that the dehumanization of them and the smearing campaigns after they've been killed, where these people have like risked and lost their lives to show us what's happening in Gaza. And a lot of the media did not stand up for them. So honestly, almost every day the past 2 years, I've wanted to not do it anymore. And every day for the past 2 years, I've wanted to do it more. So I think that's all I can say about that.
No, I think that's an incredibly important point, and thank you for bringing up the brave and courageous journalists in Gaza. I think it's something like 250 of whom have been killed since the beginning of this war, and their documentation was absolutely vital. No international journalists were allowed in, and the world relied on Palestinian journalists to document their own struggles, which I know that you're also doing in many of your contexts, and it is life-threatening in particular to be a Palestinian journalist in Gaza. So it's great to hear that that's giving you motivation to carry on, also in honor of them. Mona, how about you?
Okay. I think the hardest part is what we are not allowed to show. Sometimes you capture some great stories, but it can be shown for different reasons. The stories of women rape survivors, mother grieving, girls trying to go to school in displacement camps are often hidden or erased. Many women are afraid to speak sometimes, others are ashamed into silence. I have met survivors of sexual violence who want their stories healed, but she don't trust that the world will listen or protect them. So, as I mentioned, there are risks when it comes to capture those stories, but because I believe those stories matter and someone can hear them and help them, fund them, even if it's not published in the media, maybe some organization can help them and they can benefit from fundings. Also, I think we as photographers or journalists, still we need some funds to continue working on what we are doing.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a challenge. Yeah, it is. There's your own risks, but there are also the risks that your subjects feel in revealing their faces, I'm sure, and telling their stories, and that is a huge challenge. Thank you for sharing that. How about you, Do?
I think one of the hardest things for me has been not to be able to kind of support other photographers in a conflict zone, like listening to their stories, hearing about what is happening, the killings, and many of them had to leave the East, and all that situation. At some point, it was very difficult to be in contact with them, but there's nothing you can do. You're only a photographer. You can't even go there and take photos. You can't even really report about what they are going through. So that has been difficult. And also, I think, we kind of need support, funding, yes, but we also need security. At some point, some photographer cannot do their job, even just to kind of tell the story. They are not allowed to because of the conflict. They're not even protected. So it's very difficult. But
Yeah, I think that's probably universal. And thank you for sharing the situation in the context of DRC. Narline?
Pour moi, le défi
For
auquel
me,
je suis
the
confrontée
challenge
tout le
I'm
temps, c'est
faced
que
with all the
quand on
time
rencontre une personne,
is when we meet someone.
et généralement, on dit aux femmes
Generally, we tell
victimes de
women
violence de
who
dénoncer,
are
de dire, de
victims of
parler et
violence, we
tout.
tell them to
Mais après
tell
l'avoir
about it.
parlé, qu'est-ce qu'on fait?
But
Parce que
after
comme je dis, moi-même, j'ai
telling their
rencontré pas mal de
stories,
femmes
what is
victimes de
done? I've
violences
met many women
sexuelles
who
brutales.
were victims of
Donc,
brutal sexual
pendant 3 jours,
violence.
oui, on écoute,
And during 3 days, we
cette femme-là,
listen.
elle est entourée avec
That
d'autres gens qui
woman
soit psychologue,
sees
travailleurs
a
sociaux et tout, et puis une photographe comme moi qui
psychologist
est là
and a
pour
photographer like me
raconter
who
son
is
récit.
there to
Donc,
share
et
her
puis après,
story.
3 jours passés avec cette
And
personne-là,
after these 3
je
days,
parle. Et la personne, le plus
I'm
souvent, elle
going
retourne dans le
away, and that
sur le lieu
person
où
most
elle a
of the
été
time
victime.
goes back
Donc, elle
to
habite dans le
the
même
place
quartier et le
where she
bourreau, elle
was
voit
a victim. She lives in the same neighborhood,
même
and
bourreau,
she
la personne,
sees
les
the
gens
same
qui l'ont
people
violentée.
who
Donc, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Est-ce
did
qu'on peut dire à
violence
cette
to her.
personne de dénoncer, de
So
parler, et
what
puis après,
can
on la laisse comme ça?
we
Donc, moi-même,
do? We
il n'y a
ask
pas assez
people
de
to
sang pour
speak
accueillir sa
up,
femme.
but then we
Et
cannot
pour
do anything
moi-même,
for them. There are not enough centers to
désolée, mais je pense
welcome these
pas, en fait.
women. So I'm
Je
carrying
traîne
this
cette
load.
l'histoire de ces femmes avec moi, que ce soit
I
psychologiquement
live
et tout
with
ça.
all the
Bon,
stories of
mais
these
puissante,
women,
qu'est-ce que je peux
and
faire pour aider cette personne? Il n'y a pas assez de financement, il n'y a pas assez de centres
I feel
pour accueillir ces femmes-là.
powerless
Moi-même, je pense que
psychologically.
c'est
There are
ça
not enough centers
qui me dérange
have
énormément.
to
Est-ce que
help
je fais?
these women.
Oui,
So
je travaille avec cette personne-là
I work with
pour qu'elle
these
aille
people
mieux.
so
Et
that they
puis,
can
2 jours, et puis
be
après, à
better.
chaque
I do it
séance, et
during
après ça,
2 or 3 days,
elle
and
retourne dans son quartier.
afterwards, that person
Donc,
goes back to
c'est lourd.
her
Pour moi,
neighborhood.
c'est le
So
plus grand
it
défi.
is really
Elle est liée
heavy. It is
au
a load
financement et
for
puis
me.
les espaces qu'on trouve.
There is not enough financing for these spaces. So this is the greatest challenge for me.
Yeah, I can imagine you're getting to know these women and carrying their stories and knowing that so little help is available. It must be really tough. We have a question. Actually, I'm going to stay with you for a moment because we have a question from Lovely from your country, from Haiti, asking how do you manage through your photos to capture any hope and resilience? And what role can these images play in raising awareness and maybe promoting peace? So maybe you could speak to that. Do you feel that there is some hope that you're able to bring about?
L'espoir.
Bon, déjà, je pense que la photographie, c'est un médium
Photography, I
assez
think,
puissant.
is a very
Assez
powerful
puissant. Et
media.
moi, en tant que femme,
And
quand
as
je
a woman,
photographie,
when I
je raconte
photograph,
les récits de femmes, je fais
take
attention
pictures, when
qu'elles
I
restent femmes, même si
tell a women's story,
elles ont été victimes,
I
etc.
want
Mais
them to
bon,
stay human,
moi-même, bon,
even if they were faced with
je ne
violence.
pense pas que la photographie
I do
soit
not think that
suffisante
photography is enough
pour rétablir la paix,
to
mais c'est déjà
reestablish
un début.
peace.
Parce
But this
que
is a
c'est,
beginning.
on montre ce qui se passe,
We
on
show
dit,
what's
on
happening,
dénonce à
we
travers la
tell, we
photographie,
denounce
mais
through
c'est
photography.
c'est toutes les instances de la société qui
But
doivent
all
être mises en place pour aider
parts
ces
of the
personnes, ces
societies
femmes,
have to
pour
get
rétablir la paix en
together, be
Haïti, pour les
organized in
petites filles,
order
les
to
enfants, tous les enfants
establish
en général
peace in
puissent
Haiti
retourner
so
à
that
l'école,
children can go
que
back to school,
la sécurité soit
so
rétablie dans
that
le pays,
security
mais
can be
je pense
reestablished in the
qu'il y a
country.
beaucoup d'autres paramètres à prendre en
There
compte.
are many
Oui, je
parameters to be
dénonce
taken
avec la
into account.
photographie.
Yes,
Oui,
I
je montre ce
denounce
qui se
through
passe.
photography.
Oui, je dis
Yes,
ce
I
qui doit
show
être
what's
fait
happening.
à
Yes,
travers
I'm
les images,
telling
à
what
travers les
has to
récits
be
et tout.
done
Mais
through
je pense que le
stories and
problème,
images.
il est plus
But the
corsé que ça.
problem,
Donc,
it goes deeper,
toutes les
is more
entités prennent
complex.
les
So
responsabilités
all
pour permettre
instances
à
have to
Haïti
take their responsibilities
de respirer en
so
paix.
that Haiti can breathe.
Mm. Thank you for that reflection, Narline. Cailley, is there any? I know that you did in your framing of the objective of Photoville is also to deliver humanity, the human side of conflict, also the women's perspective, but also hope and resilience. Can you speak to that a little bit to answer Lovely's question?
Yes, I often think it's um I agree with Narline. I understand that it doesn't feel like enough often, and it feels like a tool and uh, amidst of problems that require so many tools. I always think of it as a point of connection between disparate people. You know, one of the stories in the exhibit, and I might not get the name correct, but it's about a UN director who's traveling to different countries, and she talks about how when she goes into other countries, officials won't shake her hand because she's a woman. And I always think of, you know, people who are reading that story in other countries, they might not have that exact experience, but all women knows what it feels like to not be acknowledged or to be otherized. And so when you're able to make connections between people through photography and through these visual stories and storytelling, where they can feel a little bit not alone, a little bit of a connection with the other people who have similar issues they're going through, where they can put their experiences in a larger context. That for me is hopeful, and that for me speaks to the power of imagery and photography and connecting people across different, very disparate lived experiences and backgrounds. So I hope this exhibit does just that between women all over the world. But I agree that it's sometimes hard to feel hopeful. I think one of the wonderful things about this exhibit is that the imagery is very strong. There's some very strong colors in it. Just even visually, it gives a feeling of hopefulness, and that is something that I think we did very intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I hope it conveys some hope as well as some of the struggles and challenges that have been talked about today.
Well, that's great. I know from behavioral science that people respond also, they're able to connect better when they're not confronted with too much that gloom and doom and so that kind of connection where they do see some bit of resilience, that there is hope to turn this situation around, I think is important in communications. I wonder how you feel about that, Rita.
Sorry, Melissa, do you mean about the hope of like, how do I feel about the
Capturing hope somehow, that there is maybe a little expression of hope in your work.
Yeah, I mean, with the photos for Photoville, I don't think you have a choice but to have some hope. I mean, we have this woman from Cambodia who knows how to remove bombs from the ground, you know. So it's like, and this is because in Cambodia they have so much of that, and she has training, and she brought that to my country. So it would be so insulting of me to say that I don't have hope when like the person I'm photographing is so inspiring. So yeah.
Yeah, that's agency, resilience, expertise, all kinds of things. That's fantastic. And Doe, how about you?
I will say I think I will support what Rita just said. When you're photographing someone like those women who have so much hope, who like they're resilient, they keep going, they're working for their communities. You kind of just feel hope, you know, you feel energized, you feel strong because you see the work that they are doing. And you are like, if they can do that, I think I also can play my part, you know.
Wonderful. Well, last but not least, Mona, how about you?
Okay, for me, it's about hope, but also I see documentation and photography as a means of resisting tool. It is a resisting tool, resisting of the aftermath of the war, and building an archive of a collective memory that can help us understand the past and avoid repeating it, repeating its mistake. So it is about hope and about peace building. Yeah.
Peace is hope, and building peace is absolutely what we need more of. And I just want to thank all of you for the work that you do, and for the storytelling expressions you bring out to the world. And thank you to Photoville. The art of photography is an art that is so powerful. I'd like to invite everyone to experience the photo exhibition in many of the tour locations, be it in Cyprus, Osaka for the World Expo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, or at the United Nations headquarters in New York this October. For those of you who can't attend in person, though, the exhibit is also available online, and you'll find the link in the chat. I'd also like to encourage anyone posting about today's conversation or the exhibition on their own channels to use the hashtag Women, Peace, Security and hashtag Photoville so that we can follow and share your posts. It has been a pleasure meeting you all, listening to you, and coming together as a community that is using art for peace. Thanks very much.